It's Business West Business Talk with Editor-in-Chief Joe Bednar.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Business Talk. I'm Joe Bednar, the editor of Business West. We're super excited today for our first video podcast, and we're also excited for the guest we have. This is Rick Sullivan. He's the president and CEO of the Western Mass Economic Development Council. So happy to have you here in Business Talk.
Great to be here and honored to be the first guest.
Yeah. So before we get to the heavy stuff, you recently announced your retirement from the EDC. What's retirement looking like for you?
Well, it seems like just recently, but it was almost a year ago. So it's been a long runway here, but it was time. It'll be almost 11 years when I leave at the end of the calendar year, and I do believe that it's time to have some new blood, different perspectives, different leadership to be able to take an organization in a different direction. I think it was Bill Parcells who said you shouldn't coach a team more than 10 years, and I think there's some truth to that. And you get to a point where you've done some of the same things that you've done for a long period of time, and it's just time for the organization to change it up. So I think for the organization and myself, it was just a really good time to have this happen.
Kind of looking back over your tenure, what are some of the goals or vision you had coming in, and do you feel like those goals were realized?
Yeah, so coming in, it was probably two significant goals. One was to grow the organization. When I came in, there was a little over 50 members, and they had just done a strategic plan in 2013, which basically said, look, you need to grow the organization, you need to diversify the revenue streams of the organization, you can't just rely on membership dues, so you need to expand the revenue diversification. And we've done that. So today we're at 90 some odd members. So almost doubling of where we were back in 2015 when I came in. So that's been good. And then the other thing was that the membership at the time was really looking for the EDC to become the lead organization in Western Massachusetts with regards to issues of business and business development and the economy, with the state, with the business leaders, mostly in Boston, with the policy setters, the regulators, because it was really felt, and I do think it's true, and having spent some time in Boston, I really know it to be true, that when the regulators and the policymakers sit around the table down in Boston and make the rules and the policy and the laws, they don't have a Western Mass perspective. They don't have a perspective of what happens on the ground in Western Massachusetts and how that's going to impact. And so the membership was really looking to be the place, the clearinghouse, if you will, the go-to place where governors, lieutenant governors, cabinet secretaries, those regulators would come and have those conversations. And that's what we do at our meeting. And I think we've been highly successful in that. I think you could ask any of the people I just referenced there, and I think they'll tell you that when they're looking for that Western Mass perspective, or when business legislation or regulations being thought of is, we get a call to bring that perspective. So I think we've really brought the Western Massachusetts business community to the business table.
There's probably some people in the business community that don't quite get what the mission is of the EDC. Mm-hmm. In addition to the things you've already said, how would you explain it in simple terms?
So the simplest way to look at it is our membership is really committed to growing the economy of Western Massachusetts, growing the vitality economically, growing jobs, growing the ability for all residents of Western Massachusetts to enter the workplace and have a better quality of life. So it's pretty simple, and it's a little bit of the rising tide raises all boats type of theory, where if the economy is doing better and people have more disposable income, then they're buying more groceries, or they're going to the Big E, or whatever they will spend their money on. But that's going to help all of the companies that sit around my table.
It's certainly been an interesting 11 years, both for the EDC and for the Western Mass economy. What do you feel like have been the biggest accomplishments during your tenure at the EDC, and what was that like for you?
So I think the biggest accomplishments are actually what we are seeing right here today, and that is really the development and helping to catalyze a couple of different new sectors here in Western Massachusetts that we look to have be headquartered here in Western Massachusetts, provide job opportunities here, and really grow the economy. So the board challenged us to find new sectors, so we actually have a new sectors committee, that were sectors that spoke to who we are in Western Massachusetts, were sectors that had growth potential in terms of jobs and dollars, and would bring companies into Western Massachusetts and actually have us be a bit of an exporter of what we produce here. So we have focused on quantum and quantum manufacturing, quantum computing, and with the asset over in Holyoke at the High Speed Computing Center, the state has already committed $5 million, and a company by the name of QError, which is in the Metro Boston area, has committed $11 million to build a quantum computer there, which should be up and running in the next 12 to 18 months, plus or minus. And I think it's a significant investment. I think you will see the state come in with additional resources to really move this forward. And part of the argument has been that, the state did a great job investing in biotech and clean energy and IT. And those are great, and they've been wonderful for the state economy, but those benefits really didn't come back out here towards Western Massachusetts. So this investment in quantum really identifies strengths that we already have here. We have Mass Mutual, which is obviously a leader here in Western Mass, but a national leader, and very interested in quantum manufacturing, AI, cyber. It's all separate, but at the same time, it's all still somewhat related. I think you'll look to see us through the state make investments in STCC, Holyoke Community College, Greenfield Community College, our other schools of higher ed, certainly particularly UMass Amherst, which is again a leader, being the flagship in the research and development campus for the Commonwealth. There's a lot here already, and then quantum leads to quantum manufacturing, and obviously manufacturing, particularly precision manufacturing, is really kind of who we are and have always been. It's in our DNA in Western Massachusetts, so it plays very well. So I think you're going to look to see that sector really start to take off and be impactful. And the other one is one that I think we could actually say was right there in front of our eyes, and probably either A, didn't notice it, or B, just kind of took it for granted, and that's food science. And again, that relates back to everything from agriculture to water delivery and water filtration and water scarcity issues, but also can go as far as alternative proteins and innovation and entrepreneurship within the space of food science. And little did we know that probably the leading institute in the country and one of the international leaders is the University of Massachusetts. And they do great work out there already. And then when you combine that with companies that are already here, like the Big Ys or the Aramax or Friendlies or Hood, and then smaller companies and some new ones starting, something like Clean Crop out of Holyoke, those are all under that food science umbrella, if you will. And so we are very optimistic. We've actually, EEC has filed for a grant for food science to make us a tech hub in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. There's probably only going to be about a half a dozen tech hubs. We may be the only one in food science, but the importance of these sectors is that they speak to our DNA in terms of who we are as a region. So we're not making up a sector. These are sectors that are going to be more important tomorrow and 10 years down the road than they even are today. The bad news, I guess, is we're going to have to be on top of cybersecurity, and AI is booming, and quantum is booming, and the issues of food science and food scarcity and water delivery systems and water scarcity, those problems are only going to grow and be more important in 10 years. So they make total sense to make those investments. And again, it's kind of who we are in Western Massachusetts. So I actually think, in leaving, I'm actually leaving a couple really exciting opportunities behind for the next CEO, and quite honestly for the EDC moving forward.
You're listening to and possibly watching Business Talk, a podcast presented by Business West. I'm Joe Bednar. We're here today with Rick Sullivan, the president and CEO of the Western Mass Economic Development Council. Great thoughts on some of the sectors that you're all focusing on now. Is it a constant effort to continue to identify other areas where we can make Western Mass more competitive with the rest of the state and the country?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the way of the world, right? It's all about competition and what can you do to be, give you a little leverage or a little leg up on all those things. At the same time, we also can't forget about what we do really well, and certainly manufacturing and precision manufacturing are both things that we do really well and have for generations. So, in looking at some of the new opportunities, How can those be combined? So I think there was some combination to those and some of the quantum opportunities, but we also still need the investments in the things that we do well also. And one of the other things that I think we can do a better job at is recognizing that we're fortunate here in Western Massachusetts to have a really strong higher ed sector. Certainly, we mentioned some of them before, but the colleges like the Elms and Bay Path and Western New England and AIC, combined with UMass and others in our community college system, we have a real strength there, recognized nationally and internationally when you include Smith and Mount Holyoke and Amherst. Sure. Those are leaders, and I don't think we've done a good enough job leveraging that sector. Because when companies, the first question they ask when they say, look, okay, I do X, Y, or Z in terms of manufacturing, or this is the company I have, can I find the workforce? That's the first question. Well, when they're looking for that talent is sitting in the classrooms of our higher ed institutions. So I think we need to do a better job as an EDC and as a region, not only celebrating, but really marketing the advantages that we have here and the really high quality of higher education that we have.
What do you think we'll be talking about 10 years from now in the business community in Western Mass, and is it even possible to project that?
Well, it's probably impossible to project, but you asked the question, so let's have a little fun with it. I mean, I guess, selfishly, I hope that it means that, we're looked at as the leader in food science as a region. So the companies that are in that business are looking to innovate within that business, in that sector, are coming here to do business. So they're moving companies, or they're making investments out here, or they're partnering with, again, some of the schools of higher ed or whatnot to be able to move that forward. And the same thing for quantum. So I guess selfishly, I think that will be, I'm hoping that that's part of it. But there's certainly something out there that isn't on the radar screen right now. I mean, the world changes faster today than it probably ever has. So who would have been talking about quantum a decade ago? So I think that that's what you'll see. And I hope that the leadership of the EDC is still impactful. The strength of the EDC is really not with the CEO. It's really with the women and men that sit around our table, our 90 some odd members who are committed to the organization. They make investments of time, talent, and treasure in the organization, and they're really looking to move it forward. So I hope the EDC itself grows after I'm gone. I would see that as being very successful. I hope we've created a good foundation, but you want to see that grow and expand. And I don't lose sight of the fact that when you look at the companies that are represented, and then you look at who's representing those companies, because for the most part it is the CEOs and the presidents that are around that table, and that's their commitment to the region and the economy and the residents of this region.
What do you feel like what are some of the main challenges to get where we want to be? You mentioned workforce. That's something that's on a lot of people's minds these days. What are some of the other challenges you see?
So clearly, I think workforce is number one. It's been number one for quite a long time, and I think it's going to continue. I think part of that is, I think Western Massachusetts really needs to have a growth strategy in terms of population growth. I think this is a good opportunity in terms of a moment in time to be able to have a growth strategy. The state, certainly under Governor Healy, is making significant investments in housing, and I really encourage every single city and town to take advantage of the incentives that are out there for development across the housing spectrum. So from the higher end to market rate to workforce housing. I mean, it needs to be everything, because right now many parts of the region have no growth, in some cases even declining growth, and if it wasn't for immigration, there would probably be no growth. So having no growth means that it makes it harder to fill those jobs. It's harder to make that case as to why somebody should move here. And I know there's an old saying, and I don't think it was Bill Parcells who said it, but if you're not growing, you're dying. And I think that I think the growth strategy needs to be in every single community, and now is the time to be able to do that, because if you create a housing stock People will move in. That will go to affordability, which is a gigantic issue out there right now. People, have choices, particularly when they can work from home or whatnot. They can go and they can live in a less costly community. And when you stack things up in terms of energy costs and taxes and food costs and transportation costs, Western Massachusetts can make a very compelling case as to why we're a very good place to live. Our quality of life is excellent.
Sure.
Going back to, our commitment to recreation and outdoor activities and the environment, those are all things that are important when people are deciding where they can live. And today they have more choices than ever. But I think we really need to have a growth strategy. And that will also help places like the higher ed that we talked about before, because most of our colleges and universities draw significantly from the region. Yes, there's some international, yes, there's some across the country, but it's mostly regional. And that's been a very flat, if not declining, segment of the population. And so we need to grow that to give them more opportunities to put more students, into their classrooms and create more of a talent pipeline for us.
Rick, I've been talking to you for a long time. I joined Business West 24 years ago, which seems shocking. You were the mayor of Westfield then, and since then you worked on the state level, on the municipal level, now with the EDC. In all those roles, what have you been most proud of when you look back and see what your legacy is?
Well, I would like to believe that we've left the position, we've left the community or the state, in this case the EDC, in a better place than we found it. And I think that that's true. I mean, in Westfield, we can look at some of the projects, whether it was the investments in the school or the rail trail or the bridges. At the state level, there's a whole host of different things that I had the great opportunity and given the opportunity by Governor Patrick to work on, from renovating a number of the state parks to really kind of kicking off the implementation of his clean energy policy. And here at the EDC, I think we've grown the EDC. I think we've moved the prestige of the EDC up. So I do think we've left it better than we found it, and I think the next person will do the same thing.
So we should know soon in the coming weeks who the next president and CEO of the EDC is. Do you have any words of advice for your successor?
Really stay close to the membership. Again, the quality of the individuals that sit around that table, the companies they represent, really are the companies that drive our economy here in Western Massachusetts. And the CEO is important because he will be or she will be the implementer. But really, it's the agenda of the membership. And they're all really smart, and they're all really committed to this region, and they want to see the best for the region. Sure. And not in a parochial sense. It really is that they'd like to see everybody doing better. They would like to see the economy grow. They would like to see the population increase. They would like to see everybody successful. They'd like to see a higher labor participation rate, all of those things, and they will help form the strategy to make that happen. But stay close to the membership. It's a great bunch of people that are very committed to this region.
Definitely good advice. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I really appreciate you coming by.
This is great. Thanks. I'd say I'd do it again, but probably not.
Maybe someplace. And thank you, all of you, for tuning into Business Talk, for watching and listening. I'm Joe Bednar, the editor of Business West. We'll see you next time.